Welcome back to the Vertical Drop Viking. I'm Josef. This is the last of my three-part series on the DNA of roller coaster manufacture and design. At the end of this video, I'll put a link to parts 1 and 2. But since you're already here, let's dive right into our third and final dishonorable mention, Togo. Togo is a Japanese manufacturer that seemed to have disdain for its international markets, but was more than capable of producing a solid ride, as long as they knew it was going to be sold within the boundaries of Japan. If they're famous for anything, it's this disparity between their Japanese and their foreign coasters. Their coaster bandit could arguably be pointed to as the catalyst for the coaster wars of the 1990s. Their American constructions are all particularly terrible, the Big Apple coaster in Las Vegas being the last one operating. Their strategy of selling substandard rides to foreign markets would catch up to them, as they would declare bankruptcy after being sued by Knott's Berry Farm in 2001, forever leaving the U.S. market behind. Alright, let's get into the list proper. We've got more companies to cover than in the first two videos, so I'm going to try my best not to get too lost in the history lesson bit for every coaster, like I'm so wont to do. We'll start out with Schwarzkopf. This is a German manufacturer who built their first full-scale roller coaster all the way back in 1964. Many of their coasters are smaller-scale rides that are focused on helices and positive G-forces. After Arrow reintroduced the world to the roller coaster inversion in 1975, Schwarzkopf reintroduced the vertical loop, which had existed in 19th century roller coasters, but had ended in disaster, as they were all too small and too circular, causing breakneck levels of jerk on the riders' heads. Schwarzkopf pioneered a larger, teardrop-shaped loop, and I apologize, I literally tried and I can't get around this awful pun. Schwarzkopf revolutionized the entire industry when they debuted Revolution in 1976. From this point on, Schwarzkopf and Arrow were competing with one another to make more loops, more inversions than the other one, but Arrow always managed to stay one step ahead. The company went bankrupt in 1983 and operated mostly as a consulting firm after its reorganization until the founder's retirement in 1995. If you get on a Schwarzkopf, you can expect it to maintain a good speed the entire time and work hard to push you down into your seat every chance it gets. Premier Rides is a U.S.-based manufacturer that got its start in 1996 with Runaway Mountain at Six Flags Over Texas. While this enclosed coaster would establish them as the creator of low-cost, thrilling rides with tiny footprints, looping in and over and under itself in a style that's referred to as a spaghetti bowl layout. This coaster would actually prove to be an outlier in their catalog, as it is the only one that features a booster wheel lift. Now, after this first entry into the market, Premier was the first company in the world to integrate a linear induction motor into the ride, a technological advancement that would change the industry forever. The Flight of Fear enclosed dart coasters would be the world's first linear induction motor coasters, quickly followed up by the Mr. Freeze reverse blast coasters. They would go on to be the foremost producer of limb launch roller coasters for the next 14 years, until the advent of LSM technology started to make limb launches obsolete, and would adopt it for all of the coasters that they produced from that point on. If you're getting on a Premier Rides coaster, you can expect a magnetic launch. You can expect a ride with rapid fire elements. You can expect a ton of inversions and near-miss elements. These coasters almost all loop in on themselves and take up a small footprint in their respective parks. The jewel in their crown, and primary exception to the rule of smaller roller coasters and smaller footprints, is Alpenfury, their new 9-inversion LSM launch coaster that debuted in 2025 at Canada's Wonderland. Next up we have Zamperla. Zamperla is an interesting company. It's a story of setting expectations and then defying them. The Italian ride design and manufacturing company Zamperla is generally viewed first and foremost as a producer of flat rides, being an ubiquitous producer of discovery rides, swinging ship rides, discos, teacup rides, bumper cars, and Ferris wheels, among many others, with over 80 different models of flat ride advertised on their official company website alone. Many of the smaller scale flat rides at amusement parks and traveling carnivals are of Zamperla make. They're also notable for being a major producer of coin-operated kiddie rides, like the ones you used to see at American malls. In spite of this reputation as a flat ride producer or as a kiddie ride producer, Zamperla has also produced more roller coasters than Intamin and Bolliger and Mabillard put together, with over 400 coasters built by them as of this year. That said, their coasters are known for being small, portable, and affordable, with a disproportionately small number of the roller coasters operating at permanent parks, and the majority of those permanent installations being powered kiddie coasters and Wild Mouse installations. Now, this is a company that has existed for the entirety of the coaster wars, and they never bothered to participate, deciding it would be better for them to fill a different niche than to compete in a niche in which they would be outclassed. They had an entry in the suspended coaster market, the incredibly unpopular Volare model, and they also introduced a coaster with bicycle-style seating in 2008 with the Moto coaster model. But besides that, they've consistently kept their coaster designs conventional and compact. That is, until the 2020s. Now, in late 2018, a park in Italy closed, and Zamperla inexplicably bought their Intamin accelerator from them. This was very perplexing at the time. What would Zamperla want with a roller coaster from a different manufacturer? Well, in late 2022, the answer was revealed at the IAAPA conference. Zamperla was converting the hydraulically launched accelerator into an LSM coaster and had already sold the ride conversion to Playland in Vancouver. During the planning stages for this converted coaster, Cedar Fair hired Zamperla to do a similar conversion of their standing but not operating Stratocoaster, Top Thrill Dragster. Now, although Zamperla took longer than anticipated to open both of these rides, today they both stand as successes, and as bold declarations that Zamperla refused to be typecast or pigeonholed. While the vast majority of their coaster offerings are small and inexpensive family rides that are barely worth mentioning, they also have their fingerprints all over the tallest and fastest coaster in the Western Hemisphere. Mack Rides. Mack Rides is the oldest of the companies that we'll discuss in this series, having started in 1780 as a German stagecoach manufacturer. Their first roller coaster was built all the way back in 1921, although finding any information on their coasters before the 30s is extremely difficult. I suppose they had bigger problems to worry about in Germany during the 1930s and 40s. The family continued to build rides throughout the decades and opened their own amusement park in 1975, Europa Park, which until 2002 only featured rides made in-house by Mack. From 1975 until 2009, Mack specialized in dark rides, flat rides, spinning coasters, Wild Mouse coasters, and powered family coasters, similar to Zamperla's catalog, as well as bobsled coasters and coaster/log flume hybrids. In 2009, they debuted their first LSM-launched inverting coaster, Blue Fire, which would prove to be one of their most successful models going forward. These launched coasters were their first successful installations in the U.S. that weren't water coasters, bobsleds, or Wild Mouse coasters. Since 2009, their catalog has been focused on these launched coasters and their spinning coasters, even combining the two concepts for Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City and Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland. They've even dipped their toes into the hypercoaster market, but none of them have been installed in the Western Hemisphere, unless you count the one that's basically on the line. If you're riding an older Mack, you can typically expect a standard Wild Mouse or spinning coaster experience. But a newer Mack ride like Stardust Racers or Ride to Happiness might well give you one of the most thrilling and action-packed launch coaster experiences that you've ever encountered. Last up, we have Vekoma. Now, the story of Vekoma is really two stories. The original company, the Veld Koning Machine Factory, was founded in the Netherlands in 1926, making steel farm equipment and coal mining equipment. In 1965, the Dutch government announced the end of all coal mining in the Netherlands, which forced Vekoma to pivot to making steel equipment for the oil industry instead of for the coal industry. In the 1970s, Aero Development contracted with Vekoma to manufacture their track and support structures for the European market, It's a lot cheaper to have them make it than to build it and ship it. They sent representatives to the Netherlands to teach the engineers at Vekoma how to construct aero rides. Eventually, Aero worked out a licensing deal with Vekoma to use their coaster building technology and sell rides independently. In 1979, Vekoma broke ties with Aero and began directly competing with them in the European market. Their earliest designs were very similar to Aero loopers, with corkscrews and vertical loops defining the ride layouts. It was in 1984 that they debuted their first iconic coaster model, the first to be unmistakably Vekoma and the first developments of Vekoma's unique fingerprint. This shuttle coaster featured a single train and a reverse lift hill, which pulled riders up into the air backwards before releasing them to careen through the station, over a cobra roll inversion, through a vertical loop, and up another forward-facing lift hill. This second lift hill catches the train and brings it up to the top before dropping the train backwards, sending it flying in reverse through the vertical loop and through the cobra roll before returning to the station. Now, notably, navigating this vertical loop backwards generated the highest spike of positive G-forces to be found on basically any successful roller coaster ever. These boomerang rides were low cost and had a tiny footprint, allowing for a new ride with a small investment from pretty much any park who wanted one, and its short ride duration allowed for a decent rider capacity even though the ride could only operate with one train. The model was wildly successful. They would sell 10 of them over the first 8 years, but that was only the beginning. They would produce a few other Aero-inspired coasters such as the Hurricane and the Mine Train, but the 1990s would eventually force them to copy someone else besides Aero if they wanted to stay relevant. After B&M found great success with their inverted coaster model, and by selling countless clones of that ride to anyone who had the money, Vekoma decided to try their hand at both of those concepts, the inverted coaster model and selling lots of clones. In 1994, they debuted the Suspended Looping Coaster, or SLC. From this point, Vekoma would mass produce these two models, the Boomerang and the SLC, and sell them anywhere and everywhere. The Boomerang quickly became the most cloned roller coaster layout of all time, with 55 installations worldwide, and the SLC is not far behind at 42. These coasters were divisive at best, with some celebrating the intensity of the Boomerang and the fast-paced inversion-centric layout of the SLC, and others decrying the Boomerang as a short and painful experience, and the SLC is a cheap Batman knockoff that regularly rattles riders' heads off of the over-the-shoulder restraints. Vekoma would innovate in small ways, producing an inverted version of the Boomerang, the Invertigo, in 1996, and a flying coaster model in 2000, before facing their first bankruptcy in 2001. They continued undeterred after their bankruptcy, and produced a giant version of the Invertigo, the giant inverted Boomerang, that passed the hypercoaster barrier and featured vertical lift hills on both ends. None of these rides would find the success that Vekoma had found with their standard Boomerang and SLC models. And as these cheaply built rides deteriorated, Vekoma became known as the budget coaster builder. Their rides became known as shaky, unreliable, and uncomfortable. They started selling a non-inverting version of the SLC aimed at families, but these are also almost universally hated, disaffectionately referred to as the hang and bang coaster in the enthusiast community, who says that the entire ride experience is hang your legs and bang your head. They would pioneer the tilt coaster in 2002, and then promptly not build another one for 25 years. They debuted a motorbike seating style coaster in 2004, but the company would only sell 3 of them in their current state anyway. In 2016, there would be a massive shift. They would move away from their outdated Aero-inspired track design and unveil an entirely new track design and new ride vehicles. Now, this was arguably the beginning of the new Vekoma, one that sought to change its image, to rely much less on mass-produced clones and cheap corner-cutting engineering. 2 years later, Vekoma would be purchased by Sansei, the parent company of S&S, from our first episode. But they bought it on the condition that Vekoma would be able to continue to operate as a separate entity and not have to change their new business model. This would ironically place all of Vekoma and Aero's rides under the same umbrella, since Aero's designs were incorporated into S&S's in the early 2000s. Since their acquisition in 2018, Vekoma is barely recognizable as the butchers who built the SLC. Their rides today are sleek, reliable, and fun, and they've continued to use their new modern track and trains to create new experiences worldwide. They've improved upon their old models, reintroducing the world of the tilt coaster and their iteration of the motorcycle coaster, as well as creating the suspended thrill coaster, the modern, enjoyable version of the much despised SLC. They also began experimenting pretty heavily with LSM launches in their designs, taking a page out of Premier's book and crafting twisting, tangled layouts for riders to surge through at speed. If you want to know what a Vekoma coaster experience is like, the single most important variable that you need to look at is its age. If the Vekoma came out before 2016, it's likely a subpar coaster at best, and a downright unpleasant one at worst. If it came out after 2016, it's likely to be one of the most solid coaster rides you've ever experienced. There are truly two different Vekomas, and unlike so many things in this world, it's the classics that you need to be wary of. This concludes our dive into the DNA of the top roller coaster designers and manufacturers in the world. If you missed part 1 or part 2, I'll put links to both down in the description and at the end of this video. If there's a company that you feel should have made the cut, feel free to comment them below, and if I get enough requests, I'll happily make a part 4. In the meantime, I think this has gone on long enough. Thank you so much for watching my video. And if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. I write, record, edit, and publish these videos all by myself every week with no AI, cheap equipment, and no real training. So if you enjoyed this, please click like and let me know that I'm making something that you like. But for now, I have been Josef. Vertical Drop Viking out.